Greetings and welcome to the 2020 Indiana Sister Cities International Symposium, Sister Cities 101 breakout session. My name is Peter Kirkwood. I'm the Sister Cities International Indiana State Representative here in Indiana. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jane Gelhausen. She is the immediate past Indiana State Representative for Sister Cities International and a Sister Cities International Honorary Board Member.
Welcome, everybody. So today, thank you for joining us, and we're going to go through several things today to explain to you really the basics of Sister Cities. So what is Sister Cities? We're going to tell you a little bit about the founding and the leadership of the organization across many levels. We're going to talk about the coverage. Where is Sister Cities located around the world and our partnerships. We're going to go through a little bit of establishing a Sister City. What does an organizational structure look like? What are the types of exchanges and partners that you have within Sister City programs? And actually, what kind of awards are there an opportunity to achieve within Sister Cities?
Great. Thanks, Jane. I'll jump in on what is a sister city. Essentially, a sister city is an international partnership between two communities. It's a mutually beneficial and reciprocating exchange. It's officially recognized when the heads of two cities come together, so the top elected officials come together to sign a memorandum of understanding. Exchanges are in municipal exchanges, business and trade, education, arts and culture. But importantly, sister cities are a long-term commitment. As you can see by the flyer down there, one of our Indiana sister cities, the Indianapolis and Taipei, Taiwan sister city, just celebrated 40 years of bilateral exchanges between our two communities. But at the foundation of Sister Cities is a citizen diplomacy program. This is the idea that every citizen has the right, if not the responsibility, to shape their country's foreign relations. And the objective being to establish global peace among our communities and better understanding. And Jane will tell us a little bit more about the history and foundation of that.
Thank you, Peter. Well, I think we should all be very proud that the founder of Sister Cities International was President Dwight Eisenhower. Sister Cities was a program that was world peace focused. President Eisenhower had just served in World War II, and he saw the very front battlefields of war. And he was looking for solutions to create peace in the world. And he saw the value of people-to-people relationships. He knew that if people had developed relationships with others in other countries, they would not want the U.S. to go to war with that country. And so thus, Sister Cities was created in 1956. The leadership of Sister Cities happens at 3 different levels. It's a very robust organization, and it's an organization that's active at the national level, the state level, and the city level. So I'll talk about each of these 3, but then I'll point out some more things in more detail as we go along. First of all, at the national level, we have a board of directors and a staff. We have some global awareness teams, an honorary board. Every year we have an annual conference, and that's held different locations throughout the United States. It actually was held here in Indianapolis back in the 90s. We have some youth programs, an artist and author showcase, a youth leadership summit that's held at the same time as the annual conference, and a high school homestay. And at a national level, they're the ones who collect the dues from the different city members, and that helps run the national program. At the state level, we have the state representative, now Peter Kirkwood, and every year we also do an Indiana annual symposium. So this year we're doing it virtually, just like the National did their conference virtually this year as well. At a city level, the leadership structure is involved, and always involves the mayor, and it involves a board, committees, volunteers, and then we have our counterparts with our other cities abroad. So this is just a photo of the National Board of Directors. The Board of Directors, it is a competitive process where there is an election. Each board member at a national level can serve 2 3-year terms. And we actually have several from Indiana that have served on the national board. One was Henry Cole of Noblesville, and then myself. I've also served on the national board. The staff in Washington, D.C. Is strong and mighty. Leroy, our president and CEO, was hired just at the beginning of this year. He previously served as the executive director of the Sister City program in Chicago for 11 years, where they have 29 sister cities. So he also served on the national board for 2 years. So he really brings, he served on the national board, for 2 terms, so for a total of 6 years. But he brings invaluable experience to the organization. We're really excited to have him as our CEO. And then we have a strong team in terms of membership programs. And then Jane Cayley, she actually coordinates all the state representatives across the nation. This one's kind of hard to read, but basically it kind of shows that there's lots of people involved at the national level. We have folks at the national level who serve as a country representative. So for example, these are individuals who have a specific expertise with either a specific country, like Germany or Japan or Ireland, or a region around the world. And so these individuals can serve as a resource for anyone across the United States in the Sister City program who needs some assistance with that particular country or region. We also have a group called the Global Envoys. And these are individuals who are really highly distinguished volunteers who have been involved with Sister Cities for a number of years. And they serve as diplomats, where they go present papers, give speeches at our U.S. embassies abroad or our international embassies here in the United States. And then the last category of leadership at the national level is the honorary board. And so these are people who've been involved with Sister Cities, either a state representative or on a board, who are no longer in those roles, but yet they serve as a resource for the cities as well as the national organization. Well, we're very proud, actually, that Sister Cities has had the attention of U.S. presidents since Eisenhower. So every president since Eisenhower has served as an honorary chairperson of Sister Cities International. And you can see here George W. Bush, here he was at our annual meeting last year in Texas. We also have Karen Pence serving as the honorary vice chairperson, as the second lady of the United States. And in Indiana, she was very active with citizen diplomacy for probably about 25 years with local and state programs. So we're very proud of the engagement of the presidents and the second lady that we have in the program. So now let's move into Indiana. In Indiana, we have 12 cities that are sister cities within the national program. That represents 34 partnerships. And so here on the right-hand side, you can see a list of the cities throughout Indiana, and then their specific international partnership. So some cities only have 1 partnership abroad, and then Indianapolis has the most currently with 9 sister cities. We are also looking for new cities in Indiana to join the programming and get involved. Either you might have a sister city already, or you might want to create a sister city abroad, and we can help you do that. Or if you already have sister cities, but not part of Sister Cities International and you would like to be, we can get you engaged that way as well. So as Peter mentioned, he's the current Indiana State Representative for Sister Cities International. It is a 2-year appointed term that's renewable. So he took over that position in July 1st. I served in that position 4 years prior to that, and then Henry Cole was a state representative for Indiana prior to that. In our Indiana sister cities, we're trying to accomplish basically 4 different things. We want to increase our visibility of sister cities in Indiana. We want to increase our number of sister city members in Indiana, build a stronger connection with a national office, and then we actually want to share our best practices and our lessons learned among our Hoosier cities, and that's really our goal today. We have a council for our state leadership. So here's a few folks at one of our council meetings. But you can see we have a nice representation of people across the state from, from the north, the south, the east, and some at-large folks as well. So we have a total of 10 folks, and they serve a very important role actually in our state sister city program. Well, the coverage of sister cities, basically here's a map of the United States, and we have 471 communities in the United States that have sister cities around the world. The states that have the most number of partnerships include California. Those are the ones in orange. So the California, Texas, and Florida all have more than 100 partnerships in other parts of the world. So we have a nice representation of states involved. And so then internationally, we also have great representation here as well. So internationally, the number of the countries that have the largest number of sister city partnerships are Japan and China. So they have about 175 partnerships with cities in the United States. The next level of countries with the most relationships are Germany and Mexico. But you can really see here across the world in all the regions, Europe, South America, Asia, Africa, Australia, Sister Cities is truly a global organization. So you might wonder, how do you go about establishing a sister city? Well, it's pretty basic. You can establish a sister city on lots of different criteria. You might have an existing business that business has a specific relationship in another country. For example, Lafayette has a relationship with Japanese companies. You might have a city that has a strong ancestry with a particular country. So for example, Jasper is very German, and their sister city is in Germany. So you might establish your own criteria. So for example, in Indianapolis, former Mayor Gray Ballard, when he doubled the number of sister cities for Indianapolis, he established very specific criteria. So for Indianapolis, the criteria that he established was to have another city that had a population of 1 million or more, had an international airport, was a prosperous city that had multiple industries that were similar to our industries, such as IT and pharma, agriculture. The fourth criteria was having education and cultural infrastructure to foster exchanges with our institutions here in Indianapolis. And then because a city can have a sister city with more than one city in the United States, he wanted to make sure that our partner that we would select would not have another city that was within 250 miles of Indianapolis. So this was criteria that Mayor Ballard established because it's similar to the large population, an airport, industries. That is really kind of the makeup of Indianapolis. But so yourself as a city, you can say, well, what are your characteristics? And then you might try to find a city in another country that has those same characteristics. But it is very helpful to actually establish a criteria because, I think it's very important that you put a lot of thought into, what do you want to have out of your sister city? Because once you establish it, like Peter showed earlier, Taiwan is a partnership that we had for 40 years. Ideally, we want to have these partnerships, last for a long time, but it may be the case where, it doesn't turn out and you have to end the relationship. We don't really want that to happen. So, if you put a lot of good thought in terms of why you want to establish a sister city, it's better to do that at the beginning. You can also establish a sister city based upon very simple things like the same name. So for example, Toledo, Ohio and Toledo, Spain actually were the first sister cities that were actually twinned. It was actually before 1956, it was actually 1931, but they were twinned together because of just their name. And actually there's many examples of sister city programs that are really because it's the same name in the United States and the same name in that country. So you can have sister cities established for various reasons. But regardless, you want to have your mayor involved, and he should be involved to ideally go abroad and visit that country, or the mayor in that country should come here to Indiana, to solidify the partnership and sign an MOU. But it's not too complicated. We have examples of MOUs that you can use and other materials that could help you get started when you're thinking about establishing a sister city. And then the last area that I want to cover really pertains to the organizational structure. So again, this doesn't have to be, it is not the same and doesn't have to be the same and related to how different cities are structured with their program. So for example, a program could be led entirely out of the mayor's office where there's a staff person who actually leads the program on behalf of that city. Another example would be how Fort Wayne is organized. They have 5 sister cities, and they have an overall board that actually governs all the partnerships. Each of the 5 sister cities actually have a separate committee, but there's an overall board to govern the partnerships. Then actually, which is the third point, is that it is very, very common that any partnership that you would establish, that you would have a committee that would be active related to all the different programs that you're doing with your international partner. So either cultural, educational, economic development, many different kinds of activities that you can do with your international counterpart. And then there's a committee organization here in the US that has a chairperson, and then all the traditional nonprofit committee roles, like treasurer, marketing person, program and events person, things like that, who serve together to strengthen the partnership. Volunteers, Sister Cities is very much a volunteer-based program. So volunteers are essential on the committees. And then also, if you have special events, you might want to pull them in, such as if you have a festival or 5K run or something like that, you may want to pull in other volunteers in the community that may not want to be on the Sister City committee, but they want to help out with special events. And it's always great to utilize folks that are interested in being involved. So what does it look like on the other side? So here in the United States, we're very structured with our nonprofits and how we organize as committees. But internationally, I'd have to say that most of the international partnerships are organized from the mayor's office. So they don't really have a volunteer structure like we do. They might. Cologne, Germany, one of Indianapolis's sister cities, has a very strong volunteer committee structure, just like it is here in the United States. But it often isn't that way. There might just be one key person in their community who is the point person, and then they work through their mayor's office and maybe some other volunteers to help get some things done on the projects that you're working collaboratively on. So again, it varies here in the United States, and it also varies internationally. And that's okay. So whatever works for the best for the two cities is what's important to, have a long, sustainable, successful relationship. Okay, Peter?
Thank you, Jane. And that's a great segue for us here, because when we look at types of exchange and partners for sister cities, really their only limit is the imagination. Because it is a people-to-people exchange, they can be as unique as any two individuals or that can come together on these types of projects. What I'd like to bring our attention to here is a case study for the city of Carmel's sister city partnership with Shenyang, Japan. I've had the privilege to serve as the vice chair of this partnership since it was established in 2012. So as we go through this slide from left to right and top to bottom, we come back to the genesis of an exchange program, and that it's an assigned agreement between the top elected officials between the country. So in that top left image we have there's the mayor of Carmel, Mayor Brainerd, and Deputy Mayor Ding Nung Lin of Shenyang, China, who oversees culture, education, health, and international partnerships. So that was kind of a foundation for outlining the types of exchanges that were going to take place between these two communities. So as we move across the right, here we see the official exchange, the municipal exchange between the two mayors, kind of outlining the opportunities and having a discussion about where they can collaborate between their two communities. And then relying on the strengths of their communities. So since this time, Shenyang, China has been identified as one of the second fastest growing cities within China. It's in Hubei province, which has been in the news quite a bit recently over the past year. But Carmel's strength is in infrastructure. For one, anybody in central Indiana knows of the roundabouts and the community infrastructure and livability and the impacts on environment. So in that moment, that became a real discussion for an opportunity for exchange between the two communities to learn from one another, because sister cities is mutually beneficial exchanges. We all learn something from one another. So that was one of the real important topics that came up during that conversation. And as we move to the top right of our slide here, we see the deputy mayor meeting with executives from the IU Health North Hospital in Carmel to learn about the American healthcare system. And it's important that when we look at exchanges and the type of exchanges, we're not just exchanging people or ideas, we're really exchanging the different systems that are operating within our countries. And then as we move down to the middle left, we see the visit by the delegation to the Carmel Art and Design Center. So here they are in one of the galleries within the design center. One of the things that came out of this exchange program was a youth art exchange, where the students from both Carmel and a school in Shenyang submitted artwork that was then displayed in a museum in downtown Carmel and highlighted on the City of Carmel's second Saturday gallery walks. So just a simple conversation and the opportunity to meet with like-minded folks in other communities and start a conversation really can lead to the opportunity to impact communities both here and abroad. As we move to the center, we see here the delegation exchanging business cards with the, at that time, the vice president of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And in the background, we see one of our council members and the president of the Greater Columbus Economic Development Corporation, Jason Hester. And this is often one of the things that our elected officials and community leaders look for is what are the trade and business benefits between these two communities. That's an important component to look at is how can we create economically vibrant communities. And a big part of that is by creating global competency, exposing our community and our citizens to different worldviews and providing them the opportunities to engage with visitors abroad. As we move to the the center right, again, we see the deputy mayor here is visiting the Carmel Public Library. As we look at the different partners and exchange, our community organizations, whether they be museums, art councils, libraries, other nonprofit organizations, humanitarian organizations, your local Rotary Club, Kiwanis clubs. It's important to bring all of the organizations into the fold to really create those broad-based exchange opportunities for the community. After having visited the library, the Carmel Library reached out to our sister city committee to request that we help them with a dragon boat festival so that they could promote the Chinese language literature that they have in the library to the greater Carmel community and be a part of their diversity and inclusion programs there at the library. Now, as we come to the bottom left of our screen, again, we see the deputy mayor, and she is with the gentleman in the top hat. He's one of the council members of the city of Carmel. And in addition to Mayor Brainerd, Jeff Worrell is president of the City of Carmel's council and honorary member of the City of Carmel's Chinese Mooncake Festival. He's emceed the event for us a number of years, which comes back to it being very important to have the engagement for your local municipal leaders to get behind these kinds of exchanges. And in that picture there, they're at the City of Carmel's Farmers Market, the Farmers Market being somewhat a uniquely American institution. And these are some of the things that we're looking to share with our international visitors and our counterparts so that we can learn and gain an appreciation for each other's lifestyles and cultural heritage. So in the City of Carmel, our mission is to foster international cooperation within and between the cities of Carmel and Shenyang, China. So within the City of Carmel, we host the City of Carmel's Chinese Mooncake Festival. And here you can see in the center bottom picture, one of our board members and Chinese performing arts dancers that engaging with one of our community members from the greater Carmel community. So we see it's very important to create that kind of global understanding within the community. And year after year, we've seen more and more community members coming out to experience the art and culture of the citizens of Chinese ancestry in our community, which really bridges the mutual understanding in our sister city partnership. One of the things that you'll hear emphasized by our colleagues at Sister Cities International and everyone in citizen diplomacy is the importance of youth and education exchange. Most every sister city program at some level has student exchanges, education exchanges between our two communities. So in the bottom right there, you'll see the image of the city of Carmel's or Carmel High School's sister school in Shenyang, China, where a delegation visited the city, had the opportunity to shadow fellow students, learn about American culture, experience a homestay, to share meals with the host family, and really come away with friendships and an impression that will last a lifetime. So this is just one experience in one community, and this is something that we've seen in the previous slides is happening all over the state of Indiana, throughout our communities, and connecting to places all around the world. If we look at each of those communities, we would all see different types of exchanges as well. And one of the things that Sister Cities International does is recognizes those efforts and achievements. And this is also something that we do here at the Indiana Sister Cities as well. But at the annual conference of Sister Cities International, they have their annual awards presentations. The presentations are done by population, so the smaller cities in one category, and then increasing by population. The different categories that they recognize are for best overall program. And as you can see here, Indiana has really represented well over the years, with the city of Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Greenfield, and Jasper all having taken the top honor of being the best overall program recognized by Sister Cities International. At this year's 2020 Indiana Sister Cities International Symposium, we're recognizing Howard Chapman for his legacy and leadership in sister cities in the state of Indiana. And it's worth noting that he was named the Volunteer of the Year by Sister Cities International, being recognized among all the partnerships between all the countries in the world. His dedication to citizen diplomacy rose above that of all in that nomination process. We talked about youth leadership and the importance of youth and exchanges, and innovation. So really recognizing the communities that are going above and beyond, and coming up with new innovative opportunities to build relationships. And again, you can see that Indiana sister cities have really done some outstanding work. Indianapolis received the Innovation in Arts and Culture for their Sister Cities International Fest, the Indy Sister Cities Fest in downtown Indianapolis. Jasper has been recognized as well. One of the local Indianapolis committees, the Indianapolis Hyderabad India Sister City Committee, was recognized for business and trade, as well as Jasper. Humanitarian assistance is another area where communities are working with their partners in countries that could use additional support. And this is where the individual can really make an impact on issues around the world. And then youth and education. We're really proud of the Indianapolis Teacher and Student Outreach Committee that was recognized this year for their innovation in youth and education. And as we mentioned, we also like to take the opportunity to recognize our own here with the Indiana Sister Cities. So in past years, the Indianapolis, for this year's awards, we'll recognize the Indianapolis Teacher and Student Outreach Committee, Sandy Ware of the Jasper Committee, and then, as I mentioned before, the Legacy Award, the inaugural Legacy Award, going to Howard Chapman, who has dedicated decades of service to sister cities in Fort Wayne, and really set an example for us all to continue to dedicate ourselves to citizen diplomacy.
Alrighty, so
Yeah.
yeah. So Peter, we'll wrap up here, and you know, Peter and I are super excited about Sister Cities. You know, we just get so passionate about really knowing that you know, as a citizen, you know, citizen diplomacy. So as an individual, you know, you don't have to be an ambassador or consul or an envoy. You know, you can just be an individual, and you can actually make a impact in the world. So Peter and I are super excited about citizen diplomacy, and we hope that you join us and get excited as well. One of the things I recommend is going to sistercities.org. That's the national website. They have an annual report there that's just, you know, chock full of information that you can learn about what other cities in the nation are doing. You know, we have our 12 cities here in Indiana that are active, but we actually have almost 500 across the United States that are doing all these programs in culture, education, economic development, exchanges. So it's really wonderful to learn from all the folks around the United States, you know, what they're doing, and then, you know, take their idea and do it in your community. We love to share ideas and learn from each other. So, you know, there's lots of ways to get involved by joining a committee in your city. If you are in a city that doesn't have a Sister Cities program, then reach out to Peter, and he'll get you involved with the Indiana program. So, or, you know, we can also help you start a Sister City, establish one actually in your own city. And then the Indiana Sister Cities has a Facebook page. So if you go out to Facebook and like us, you can, Peter gives regular updates with newsletters and, you know, notices about events, notices about what's happening at the national level. So you can really be informed about Sister Cities locally, statewide, and nationally. So that concludes our talk, and we hope that you found it interesting, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you all. Thank you for joining us.